What's up, everybody? It's Soren Baker here on the Soren Baker Show. Thank you for tuning in. And, we do a little bit of everything here on the show. And we're having a wide array of guests, some entertainment, some not. And we got to, spread the love because the world is very, very intriguing and interesting. And tonight's guest fits very well into that label. We are joined by Reggie Wright Jr. So, Reggie, thank you for coming on the show tonight.
No problem, Soren. It's an honor to be here. Been following your work for a long, long time.
Oh, well, I appreciate that, man. And obviously, Reggie Wright Jr.'s, been interviewed and famous for a lot of things that we're going to get into tonight, but we're also going to make a point to, talk about things that he normally, hopefully, doesn't talk about or hasn't been asked, or just to get to know him better as far as, why people know him. So just out of curiosity, Reggie, I appreciate your saying that you read my work. That's a real compliment because it always throws me off sometimes when people know me because I'm so used to like going in and talking to people and knowing all their stuff. So thank you for that. But the thing, Reggie, I wanted to talk to you about was obviously we're going to be talking about Biggie and Tupac, a lot of this, and I wanted to start with a very general question before we started getting specific and then getting into your life and your history. But why do you think in 2019 that these murders are still so prominent in the media and in kind of folklore at this point?
Well, there's some conspiracy people out there that want to keep it alive, and unfortunately, it's all about monetary gain, and that's the people that's continuing to making the DVDs and for profit that had nothing or anything to do with Tupac's or Big's life, but they all of a sudden know so much about the history of what was going on in 94, 95, 96, when they probably was working on the sets of Titanic or something like that.
Right.
And now they, like you, I remember I remember when you was with Chuck Phillips, you used to always tell me about you when you was writing editorial or reviewing the music from for the LA Times.
Right.
And even when you was with Source and Rap Pages, I think it was. I forget
Absolutely.
The name, Rap something. And so I remember you from back in those days talking to Papa G and George Price and mainly Chuck Phillips. With Chuck Phillips, he used to always talk to me about you, but from the LA Times.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But anyway, yeah, you was a little young pup then. You probably old now like me.
Yeah, when I would be going to Papa G's place during the mix when things were hectic, it was funny because when I would show up, people would always be surprised about me for a number of reasons. But one, that I was so young because I started writing when I was a teenager, and then was getting published nationally when I was a teenager. So when I would go to meet people, not only being white, but then also being so young and writing for places and knowing the stuff that I knew, they were always like, "You're Soren Baker?" And this is, of course, before the internet and social media really blew up. So, you just basically just had your name at that point.
Exactly.
Yeah. So for you, before we get everything current, I wanted to get kind of like, for you, were you, spending time growing up, you born and raised in Compton, actually?
Born and raised in Compton from the age of about the first and second grade. So what's to make me about 7? Okay. But actually, I was born, and my parents was both from the Imperial Courts housing projects in Watts.
Gotcha.
And so we moved from the projects. My mom would get mad if she heard me say the projects. So we was right next to the projects. Right. You ain't never lived in no projects, boy. But from right over in that area, over into to the city of Compton from about the second grade.
Okay. Yeah. And then at that time, I think this is, before, like, what era is this? What year? Because people, I think have a lot of misconceptions of the music and the atmosphere. But if we could put a specific stamp as much as you want to on that, like when was this approximately?
Well, 72 is when we moved to the city of Compton, 1972.
Okay.
I'm currently 52 years of age and graduated from high school in 1984. And so we go back from there. But second grade, that was in 1972.
Okay. So for me, really getting to know Los Angeles and the greater Los Angeles area largely through music and largely through rap in particular, and to a much lesser degree entertainment with film, because I gravitated towards West Coast music very early on. I'm from Maryland, but, I loved and studied and became infatuated and enamored with the music that was coming from Southern California. I wanted you to explain in your era, like, what did you notice was the difference moving from Watts to go into Compton?
Really, nothing other than now you're into houses that your parents were purchasing and buying instead of paying the landlord and renting.
Yeah, that is a big difference, though.
That's all, and you knew you were moving. Pretty much Compton was coming from it was predominantly a white area, probably 69 to 72. And then they started moving on to the city of Cerritos and Bellflower from about those times. So probably in the 70s, mid 70s, it was white people, a white family that we purchased our home from, and that was the when the families were starting to move, the white families were starting to move to the other cities, and the blacks, it was getting taken over by the blacks to eventually at one point getting maybe 90% to 10%, from black to browns. So now there's probably 60-40 browns to blacks, but that's the transform, how we transform. So that's what I remember about the city of Compton coming in from, because most of our parents migrated from the South or from Louisiana or stuff like that, and they went into the housing projects, which were the Jordan Downs, where the Bunny Hunters are. I can never think of their projects, but that's where TDE and all of them are from. And then, the Imperial Courts and stuff like that. So it was like 4 different projects that was in the Watts area that most of our parents migrated to and they were living in. And then they started moving on to Compton, if he was had a little bit more money, to the city of Carson. Right. And Gardena and stuff like that.
And the thing at this time, with your father, was he in law enforcement at the time or not yet?
He didn't become in the law enforcement until 76.
Okay.
He actually was he worked for Southern California Edison, which is like the electrical company out here. He was the guy that came and cut your your electricity off and on.
Okay. That's a good man to
like
see.
The collector.
Some of the time. Yeah. Some of the time, I guess.
Back then, they used to have a guy come out. They didn't do it. Now they just do it straight from the office. But back then, they used to have to come to the house and walk on your property and take it off and try to collect the money. And so that's where I think why he was so well liked, because I don't think he was a good collector. I think he was always good. He said he used to turn people's lights off and get the money and then turn it back on, show them how to turn it back on illegally.
And then how? How did he then move into law enforcement?
He moved into law enforcement. He was actually a basketball coach, and that's what I meant to get into. He ran the gym in the Imperial Courts, and he had something called the Imperial Court Stars, where he coached people like David Greenwood and Roy Hamilton, who went on to UCLA, Marcus Johnson, people like that is what he really did. But in 1976, his cousin, his name was Joseph T. Ruzon, he came over to the city of Compton and came from LAPD and became the chief of police for the city of Compton Police Department.
Okay.
And he probably came in like 75 or something like that. And he needed to know some stuff about the city of Compton. And my father, who was mainly the meter reader guy in the city of Compton and also lived in the city of Compton, he reached out to him to get some history on the city.
Mm-hmm.
And from there, I guess he got hired on, to change over into law enforcement, which he was kind of old, really, because he was 28 years of age at that time.
Okay.
And that was kind of old to be to start going through the police academy and trying to be in the law enforcement.
Mm-hmm.
And but that's how he decided to become a police officer.
And then what was it for you that also, being second generation at that point, what drew you to want to be involved in law enforcement as well?
Yeah, that came just from growing up around the house. That was always one of my dreams. To be honest, if you would have told me back then that I wanted to be an attorney right now, I would have probably said you're lying. But but I got into it's unfortunate when you get a break early in life, which I did. I got a break of working at the age of 19 at the police department for the city of Compton.
Mm-hmm.
And I did obtain my degree from University of Long Beach, Cal State Long Beach, but it made me stop and wanted to continue to make money and not to continue on to law school.
Gotcha.
And that's one of my biggest regrets in life.
Well, there's as they say, there's always time to make that change.
I'm 52 now. I can't go to law school now.
All right, well, yeah.
No.
What can you do? But as you were coming up, what was what was your relationship with rap? Both, I guess, positive and negative. Like when you were first being exposed to the culture of hip hop, your first early impressions? Did you like the music? Did you not like the music? And why or why not?
Okay. So 1985 is about the year that I was, 19, and I said I was working in law enforcement then. So I was kind of like a old man, young man at that time.
Okay.
Because like I said, you had to have your head on your shoulders a little bit to be working in law enforcement at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'll be honest, I was riding around listening to probably the Commodores and Prince, maybe a little bit of Prince when we thought we was being bad, and listening to, you remember Head and all of that didn't come on the radio.
Right.
And trying to listen to that and of course, Beat It with Michael Jackson and all of that. I didn't really get into rap that strong until EPMD. I was a big EPMD fan. But the first rap album that I really listened to from 1 to 14 or 12 was the Ghetto Boys. Yeah.
Which one?
The one with Your Mind Playing Tricks on Me.
Okay, We Can't Be Stopped.
We Can't Be Stopped. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was
the first.
That was 91.
First. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. I thought I was old. So I'm not a Scooby D head or anything like that. Or even NWA. I listened to him, or Ice-T. You knew the songs, but he was talking about killing cops then. So
right.
You didn't, fuck the police and all of that. So
right.
You heard those songs and knew them, but it wasn't like I was riding around bumping to it.
Well, it does make sense with the EPMD, though, given the Commodores and some of that stuff that was so funk-driven, because EPMD, especially on Strictly Business, the first album, had a lot of, more bounce to the ounce samples, and it was very funk-driven. So that makes a lot of sense. And it's also interesting because them being from Long Island and being from Long Island, New York, and even though, of course, later, thanks to Above the Law and Dr. Dre and Warren G, the G-Funk or the funk took over in a way. It was interesting that EPMD had used some of the same samples, but they used them more as Big Hutch and Dr. Dre and Warren G used them later, because at the time, of course, Dr. Dre and Yella, when they were producing with NWA, were much faster and more like a Bomb Squad type of sound. So it makes sense in that way.
Yeah.
What'd you like about the Ghetto Boys?
Ghetto Boys, I think I had a girlfriend at the time that loved them a lot. So every time she got in the car, she would put the cassette in. I ain't gonna say CD. You notice I didn't say CD.
Yeah.
Put the cassette in. We went through the 8-track, from the 8-track days to the cassettes.
Yeah.
Most of our listeners and the most people listening right now are like, what the hell are you talking about, an 8-track, a cassette?
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. My parents.
That's what we had.
The earliest I remember was having nothing other than the radio. We didn't even have the 8-track in the car that I recall. So that's funny.
Oh, the 45s and the 33s and all of that?
Nah, we didn't. No, we just had the AM FM. That was it.
AM FM. Okay.
Yeah. But with all this being said, and now you're in Compton, now you're in law enforcement yourself, following in your father's footsteps, how then did you get intrigued or get into, getting with death row?
Okay, it was all about making some money.
Okay.
What happened was Suge and I, we played high school football together, childhood friends. We went to elementary school, junior high school, and high school together. And so we played high school football together at Linwood High. And but then we went different ways. He was a class ahead of me, a year older.
Okay.
And so he went to El Camino College and on the UNLV. I went to Long Beach State. He was playing football and, had a little brief stint with the pros where I was working at the police department.
Well, that's when he was at with the Rams?
And he played for the Rams. Mm-hmm. And he also got a shot with the 49ers. Mm-hmm. With both of them during the scab years. I think some of the players were on strike.
Right.
And he played during that time as well.
Okay.
And so anyway, but then, I was working in law enforcement and became a cop in the city of Compton Police Department. And so now we both doing our thing. Mm-hmm. In about 1994, 93, I worked for him a couple of times doing some security jobs, video sets, this is mainly on the productions with the production companies for video shoots or, filming in the city of Compton. However, in like 94, the end of 94, my father got some intelligence that some of the guys that was working for him was planning on doing a robbery on him or kidnapping him and holding him for ransom. That's when my father met up with him and I talked about it, and he was like, hey, man, come on, I need y'all over here. Mm-hmm. Me being a 27, 28-year-old young guy, you know what that rap and that environment was bringing,
right?
And how it was attractive to, maybe a younger guy, which would be attractive to a 52-year-old guy today, but at
right.
27 years old, it was like, whoa, yeah.
Well, let's
come hang out with you.
Yeah, well, let's get into a little bit of that. I think a lot of people have some misconceptions of how things actually work with law enforcement and all this stuff. So for you, I want you to explain to the listeners, like, how does it work and why is law enforcement needed to be on present for, say, a video shoot, and why is that, in that instance, legal, normal, necessary? Okay.
The video shoot part was mainly he was working for the production company, not specifically directly for the record company. A lot of the times now, the city or the permits, when you filming in the city or, actual location, they require that you hire police officers to work on the set and pay directly through the police department. But we that's today. And at the end then, but back in 94, they wasn't that smart. They would just say, hey, here's a permit, but this is what you need. You need so many security and all of that. The reason why it was smart for a production company to hire law enforcement guys, especially in dealing with the city of Compton, going into other people's neighborhoods and stuff like that, was because now you bring in Dre and Snoop, who are Crip affiliated, and maybe some of Suge and his entourage who are Paru, the Blood affiliated, around these guys' sets.
Right.
And they have a problem like, hey, how you profiting off our set? You Crip dudes or you Blood dudes or whatever in our city. And none of us making no money and all of that. And most of the people that's working on the sets are quote-unquote professional people.
Right.
Usually white people.
Right.
And, I'm talking about the cameraman, the sound guy, people like that. Most of the directors, the people, and you have expensive expensive equipment.
Right.
And so usually they even require that you have law enforcement, before they rent the cameras and all of that equipment that's rolled out. And not only for, say, to roll out and have all of that to come there, and then you have a disruption by guys in the area over there tripping and messing with the people. You just needed law enforcement to try to hopefully to control the situation, to keep the people around so the professional people can do their job. When I'm calling them professional, I'm talking about the people working on the production side of it to kind of deal with the element. Mm-hmm. Because I remember even with us being here, several times, guys be coming over there trying to trip. Hey, I need to holler at Dre. Hey, I need to holler at Snoop or whatever. And, try to cause a disruption to the set, which, maybe they wasn't scared or intimidated, which they were, but it definitely wouldn't intimidate the production staff or crew.
And what did you notice, or did anything happen to where people stopped wanting to film videos down there? Or did it just, because of the police, because of insurance, because of permits, people continued to want to shoot in the hood?
Yeah, I think it was mainly because you can tell when something's done on Paramount Studio versus, the back lot of Paramount Studio versus the Compton swap meet or the liquor store. The liquor store scene.
Different
where,
aesthetic.
We had
it's a different aesthetic.
You need that. Correct. And so you need that feel in that set versus a set. And so that was the reason. So and the only way you can get that, what you were saying, that feel is by actually being there and being in the hoods. And and that's what they needed. And I think that's what made Set Death Row apart, their videos apart from, just the studio being inside of a lot versus, being out there in the hood and in the streets, what made their videos seem more authentic.
Right. So as the gangs and gang culture got in with Death Row and you first heard of this kidnapping, did your dad come to you first or did he go to Suge first?
Well, he told me to reach out and get a hold to him. And, he knew I know how to get a hold to him.
Right.
And because I had his number or something. And I reached out to him and, to set up the meeting. Mm-hmm. And he was just pretty much informing me. Neither one of us had any intentions that, of trying to work for him or thinking that he would, even put that out there because he had his quote-unquote quasi-type security guys, which were the homeboys. And so, and so when he said that, it kind of threw my dad immediately was like, man, I'm not, most of the guys that's working for you, I'm trying to put in jail on some cases now. Was pretty much his response.
Right.
Because he was over the gangs and more senior into it than I was. I was just a street cop, beat cop, hustling, radio calls. Mm-hmm. And, but I had just bounced back from an accident where I had messed up my ankle in a pretty bad accident as well. Mm. And so I was looking for a way out. Well, not looking for a way out. That wouldn't be quite at that time. But, it was iffy if I was going to be able to continue my law enforcement career, especially on the streets, because I had messed up my ankle pretty bad. Okay. And so once he made that, that proclaim or, said, hey, I was like, hey, I was interested. It intrigued my mind. And, that's when we came up with a plan. And I wasn't the first choice. My father had another lieutenant that had a private security company called Code 4 that he recommended to Suge. And I was just to coordinate, hiring that security company to do work for the company. Once again, mainly just for, when we did the murder was the case release where we had a big screening and a big party and a big, big parties and Soul Train after wars and video shoots. And it just started off there. It wasn't initially, having bodyguards every day, being around the artists and stuff, which I take credit for being the creator of law enforcement officers hanging around the rap stars and stuff. Because back then in the day, you used to just have the big, strong, buff guys, which they're back to now, because police officers are pretty much banned from working around guys like that, or just don't want to do it. But because of the the experience that we done had, but you had the big guys that would be the security guards and stuff like that, and they didn't have guns or anything on them, but they pretty much keep their artists protected just from intimidation factor. Right. But my whole thing was to sell against that, and the way I sell, because I had damn near everybody back in the 90s, was to sell that my guys would be there to be good witnesses for you, so your guys won't have to get on the stand and testify, and they'll be the ones to try to talk to law enforcement and diffuse the situation, and mainly to be good witnesses, not like they will hire guns or anything like that, but just good witnesses, because a lot of things that was going down couldn't happen because guys just would, you couldn't go and get on the stand and testify until what happened. Right. And so that was my guys' job. You'd be the ones to go and tell the truth and talk to law enforcement and be the witness, the quote-unquote witness. Right. Where you wouldn't have to have a Snoop or a Dre having to come to court and get on the stand and say, hey, this was happened. They tried to rush my entourage and my guys did this. Hopefully it would have been enough with the law enforcement officer, telling the story of what happened. And then what about that appealed to Suge and the rest of the Death Row? They respected it. They liked it. It worked. It worked for 2 or 3 years with no problems until, unfortunately, what happened with Tupac happened. Right. That situation. Well, with the switch. Well, obviously, Tupac is a tragedy, and we'll get to that in 1 second. But when you were first around them, because the way in 2019 rap is so different than it was back in the mid 1990s, especially the energy around the artists and the access that the media had to the artists and the way everything operated and moved. When I'll talk to people and I'll be like, yeah, I'd just go to Snoop's house by myself and just sit there with him for 4 or 5 hours. They're all looking at me like I'm crazy, but that was a everyday, not every day, but that was a normal experience that when I was interviewing or being around someone that I actually spent time with them. And I wanted you to explain to people, like, what was that atmosphere in Death Row, like the energy, and what was it being around that and not being an artist yourself, but just being in that circle when they were at their apex? Like, what was that energy? Yeah, you get a good contact high. They did a lot of smoking, which really? I'm sure you know. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear that. But that's about the most that you was going to see, because they respected you enough not to put that in your face if it was anything. People always ask about the Red Room and this. And I was like, well, none of my guys didn't experience that. We didn't see that because they didn't expose that to us. Now, I'm sure it happened. I'm not going to sit and try to put no halo over anyone's head. The things had happened, but they respected myself and my security enough not to expose us to any of that. So fortunately, we can't testify or speak on anything like that. But they smoked their weed, and so you may have saw that if you were in there, and that's usually what was happening in the studio. Right. You had no business really being in the studio. You're supposed to be standing outside the door, making sure that they protected while they're in there trying to work. And so that was pretty much the gist of that. You didn't know what you was around. I was with Tupac or Snoop. I have no pictures with them individually and stuff like that. Not that because you just looked at them as normal, regular, everyday guys. You didn't realize or appreciate what you was around until you look back at age 52 and be like, oh, okay, look what these guys became. Look what these guys are doing now. And in fairness, they weren't as big a stars as they have become, right? Or became. People think they were, especially now, and they'd be like, you should have had 4 or 5 people around Pac at all times in this. Well, number one, he wasn't going to allow you to have security on him like that. And number two, that's what was called for, and he's not the type of guy that was going to be treated like Michael Jackson, where he said, "Come here, you get in the middle of the car, and you sit in the middle, and I'll have a guard next to you and a guard next to you, and a guard riding in the front." Now, motherfucker, you get driving the car behind me is their attitude,
right?
And follow us, but people seem to think that they were.
So back then with Snoop in particular, being that you had, access and were with him all the time when he was at his ascent to, global iconic stardom, what did you see then about him that kind of made you understand or appreciate what he would become to where he is now, hosting Joker's Wild and Martha Stewart shows and all stuff, or was that not in something you saw yet?
You didn't see it in him.
Okay.
He saw it in himself. I remember him one day telling us, and that's why you see a lot of the Snoop being political, I call it, statements where I don't have no problem with the East Coast. I call that as being a political correct or whatever it is, because he always had in his mind he wanted to be big as Michael Jackson. You got to remember, this is a man that beat Garth Brooks for American Music Award Artist of the Year in '94. And so he saw it in himself, which that was a great thing. But Snoop was a little different. But you got to remember, he had just went through a murder case where he was fighting for his life.
Right.
So he appreciated security and understand the need for security and to go ahead and do what you needed to do and what asked of him, because he got a lawsuit for having a guy that did what he was supposed to do for him, where he was still got charged for murder and had to fight for his life, and lost a civil case, didn't lose a civil case, but had to make a settlement with the man's family behind having a guy that wasn't law enforcement or wasn't trained properly to discharge a firearm, in their mind to save their life, where he was still held responsible. Right.
And then
so Snoop wasn't a bad client for that. Where Pac, we all know the history of Pac, he was just a rider type, go guy, a little, lack of a better word, a hothead.
So that's always something I've been intrigued about, because with Tupac, when I started writing, when I started writing, it was just before Me Against the World came out. So when I started writing, he was incarcerated, and then as soon as he got out, of course, he's one of the biggest artists on the planet, so I didn't get to interview or meet Tupac or anything like that. And one thing that had always intrigued me is him being from New York, growing up in Baltimore, moving to Northern California, and then, settling down in the Southern California later. One thing I wanted to know from you was a few things was, at this time, what was the draw of Tupac to death row from what you could see?
Somebody that reached out for him that could make it happen. I'm hearing the people like Jay Prince and all of them saying that they were going to go and get Pac out of jail and all of that, but everybody can say that. Suge, I hear people say Madonna was in the process of trying to make it happen with her attorney. You can say that. Suge did it. Right. Suge stepped up and did it. We can say anything about Suge. And then Suge had no intentions, even though prior to that he wouldn't have minded signing Pac to death row and solicited him a couple of times. But and Pac denied. Was like, hey, nah, I ain't ready for y'all. Y'all a little bit too crazy. But he reached out to Pac. The Suge, while he was in jail, he had his wife at the time, Keisha, to reach out, and it was just mainly, hey, I need some money on my books. Suge shot some money, put some money on his books. Hey, Suge, can you come and see me? And then that's when the conversation start. And, hey, man, I don't like it in here. I'm not feeling this shit. Jimmy and them, Interscope is turning their back on me. They ain't helping me. They saying I own recoup because all of my attorney bills and all of that. What can you do to get me out of there? And Suge and his attorney, David Kenner, made it happen and got him out and gave him a chance to, to live his dreams. Now, some people will say, well, I wish he would have stayed in jail and maybe he'll still be alive. Well, that goes against my faith and my teaching, because I believe we all have a date, and God knows when we all going to leave here. Mm-hmm. But and I believe things happen for a reason, but who knows? So let's not get religious on each other and right. Put their opinions. But that's what some people will probably say, But I know he didn't like jail, and I know he had no intentions on going back to jail.
Yeah, well, I went to Dannemora to interview Old Dirty Bastard, and fortunately, I've only been to prisons and jails as a visitor, and Dannemora and LA County are by far the two worst I've ever seen, and so it was shocking. Had you ever been there?
Well, I've been to the county jail because I used to be in law enforcement and stuff.
No, I meant Dannemora, where Pac was in New York.
I was outside. I just went up there with him, but I didn't go inside the prison.
Okay. No. Yeah, that's a scary place to be inside of, man. So that definitely gave me a different perspective when I went up there, because I went to go meet with Old Dirty Bastard, and just seeing it, I was like shocked.
It's most people don't know it's closer to Canada.
Right.
Matter of fact, the limousine company that picked us up to take us to the prison, they drove across the border from Canada to pick us up.
Yeah, it's in the middle of nowhere, y'all. It's like I flew to Buffalo and then had to drive about 2 hours to get to the prison. I think it was wild. But when you had mentioned with in your way that Tupac was a hothead and everything, but what was the kind of his emotional volatility? What do you think that stemmed from?
Just him being loyal. He's a loyal person, and very opinionated, very smart, very, 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 very read, and socially, he fought for social justice because that's his upbringing from his mother to his uncles and guys, the Black Panther Party, and so he was. So he was kind of a revolutionary, not kind of, he was a revolutionary. Right. He was a revolutionary. And so that's what, so social or unjust things caused him to react or have an opinion on. And for him being very, very well read, a very real read person usually have an opinion, and it's usually opposite of what's being pushed.
Right.
And he was able to express it another way or in his way. And so that's what generally when people think, because when you always have an opinion, you usually always buck in the system. And so that's why people usually say, well, he goes against the grain all the time, or he's hot-headed, or he's that. Well, no, it's just that he just have an opinion or a different view on things because of his experiences or his training.
Right.
And that's why I said, lack of a better word of it, I didn't, mean to say he was wrong or anything like that. I think mainly the thing with Pac was he was so loyal to who he's with. And that's why people say, well, he was once, he claimed Baltimore. He was New York. You get the people in Oakland. No, he claimed Oakland. He was this. It was this. Maybe people felt, then we'll say, no, he was claiming mob, M.O.B. Paru. That's why he got M.O.B. tattooed on him.
Right.
But our reasoning being is this: he's loyal to who he's with, and I think that's what it was. It wasn't that he was a jump around or something like that. He was just loyal to whoever he was with at the time because of his loyalty.
So, with that being said, obviously he had a lot of people loyal to him, Tupac. So, for you, what is the reason that his case has not been solved? His murder.
His murder has been solved. I really believe that Biggie and Tupac murder has been solved. If y'all read the book Murder Rap, or the documentary Murder Rap by Greg Kading, you'll see that that's the findings. Well, I believe that 90, 95, and 90 to 100% could be accurate.
You'll say, well, why they call it the show that they did Unsolved? I'm sure that was just something for Hollywood and the producers, a name that they came up with.
Well, I was more going to say that with Kading, Greg Kading's findings, that I had spoken to him as well, and he said that the case had been, I forget the police term, but it had been solved but not cleared, I think was the word he used.
Yeah, not cleared. So, it can be cleared because, just a confession alone is not enough to solve a case, because you get psychos and crazy people all the time coming in saying, oh, yeah, I don't want to shot Martin Luther King.
Right.
Or I shot so-and-so, I did that. So just because you cop out and give a confession doesn't close the case, which pretty much all they had was just a confession, because the other three people were dead or are dead currently. And so, and you give that person immunity that did it or saying he did it, who do you have to go after? The Puffy thing, the allegation on Puff is just that, an allegation. Now, they were able to get Von Zip, who was still alive, to come and say, oh, yeah, Puff gave me $500,000, but I never gave it to the Southside Compton Crips or KPD, but he gave it to me. Then you may have, something else to go on. But without Von, Zip being no longer with us, and the shooter, Orlando Anderson, no longer with us, and you just have a guy that pretty much have an immunity statement saying this is what happened, who you going to go after?
Well, the thing that's always intrigued me about it was Kading's findings versus Russell Poole's. So in your opinion, since you agree with Kading's findings, what was it about Russell Poole's findings that you didn't agree with or that you thought were erroneous?
Well, number one, Russell Poole never investigated the Tupac's death, so he has no opinion on that. He, all of his thing is just an opinion, but this opinion, just is baseless in my mind. On the on the Biggie's case, who he was initially assigned to work, right? The reason why I don't believe that to be factual or to be true is because you have another person who also gave a statement to say what they did and their involvement into the murder. And the thing that Russell Poole was pushing, he's the only person that's pushing that.
Right.
He's the only one. Everybody else, even people that his supervision, his management, the people on his team, his partners, no one else buy into that. No one else believe it to be factual or to happen. And this is a man that was admitted to be a drunk, that just up and quit his job. He up and quit his job 6 months before retirement, and just been out of control. And he just went one way. And all of his witnesses, if you listen to, I do a show on this YouTube channel called Bomb First, and I done played all of the witness statements and all of them. You learn that the people that he was basing all of this on is people who call themselves Psycho Mike or something like that, who's recanted, which they all have recanted, but they were just people with questionable. They were in jail, in custody when it happened, and they just making stuff up. When you go and listen to the interview, be like, "Oh, this is where this come from." This guy come up with a name where he just created and made up, and so when you even do the investigation on Russell Poole yourself, and listening to all the things and where he get the information that he got, you can understand why his supervisors and management and other people just wrote him off as, no, you're not doing good police work right now. You're crazy. Leave it alone, Russ. I mean, this comes from the top. Right. Now some people will say, well, we're trying to solve we were just trying to close the case and hold them, not liable for the lawsuit against the city of Los Angeles that would have bankrupted the city. Well, number one, it wouldn't have bankrupted the city. Right. The city of New York then paid out $2 billion judgments back to back in years. Biggie mother was only suing for $400 million. And so it wouldn't have bankrupted the city. But number two, what witness that Greg Kading has brought up when they thought he was going to confess to the Biggie's murders and all of that, what murders did he confess to? He confessed to the murders of Tupac,
right?
Which was shocking to them. And we go, whoa, we thought we was here to talk about Biggie. No, you talking about Tupac? But if I'm training them or telling them to, hey, I just need the city resolved from this case, I need you to create this, wouldn't I have them create something on the Biggie's case instead of Tupac case, which I'm here to investigate the Biggie case? I'm not even worried about Las Vegas. I'm worried about the city of Los Angeles.
Right.
And so that's what kills all of his theories.
Okay. And then for you, as someone that saw a lot of this, how would you say that rap changed gangs in Los Angeles, and how did gangs in Los Angeles change rap?
Okay, well, we had the Truths when raps was really starting to be big. That's when NWA and really Dre and the Chronic, the 92, 93 after the Rodney King verdicts and stuff like that.
Right, the peace treaty. Yep.
The peace treaties. And so we had that truce for a minute. It didn't last long because people were starting to, hey, you Tweety Bird, you the one that killed my brother, huh? I never knew who you was. You the one. Okay, now, so that didn't work that long because people were starting to put names with faces and faces with names and incidents and now you over there. At one time you was drinking when everything was kumbaya, drinking and smoking and stuff and with each other when I'm talking about Bloods and Crips. But then now you're starting to realize who this dude is and what he's about, and then you're starting to remember all your friends and homies that they got killed. And so that true stuff didn't last that long. But you had some labels like Duff Road that was fortunate enough to work together. It was pretty much ran by guys that had a red rag in their pocket. But the artists and the stars and the people that was doing most of the heavy lifting, the producing and the rapping, from Daz to Dre to Hutch from the Bubba Laws, all of them, they all had blue rags. And, Snoop as an artist and Corrupt as artists. And so it was, but you were able, and we were unique because we were all able to work together without any major problems until, the breakup started to happen, which most of them still have relationships to this day together. It was mainly just because of the rap stuff or the business that anybody has any ill wills towards each other. It wasn't really because of the red rag or being a part of the blue rag.
Right.
And so that's what I saw about it. But the one thing that I always liked and admired and thought was strange was how they both listened to each other's music. Where you'll see a lot of Power Rules of Bloods that they know pretty much every song that Snoop ever rapped,
Right.
And Pac, who was quote unquote considered red rag, which he wasn't, but when some would consider him that, hollering the MOB and all of that. Crips with the blue rags, they'll tell you they know every song by Pac. So, but we mainly a city of, the East Coast rap and all of that. That was originated really to party and to dance. Gangster rap, in my mind, we mainly did what? Because we so spread it apart, we'd be stuck in cars forever. We do a lot of driving.
Right.
So most of our music is stuff to listen and ride to in the cars and stuff. You very rarely, most of our music wasn't geared for partying and shaking your ass in a club. But most of the East Coast music, in my mind, was geared for making you get out and have a good time and party, because y'all didn't do that much. Y'all didn't spend as much time in the cars as we did, and we didn't have we had the Walkmans, but not too many people was walking around with the Walkmans. But like now, everybody got the earbuds in their ears, walking around listening to music. And
right.
So that would be the difference that I saw, where was mainly we had music on, out here on the West Coast to ride and to drive and to be in the car with, where the East Coast had music for dancing.
Another thing I wanted to ask you too was when when Ice-T and Eazy-E and NWA, and then later with Compton's Most Wanted and DJ Quick and stuff, when they first were coming out, they weren't wearing their colors. So did you, around the time when you were getting into it, that was so prominent and it was really breaking through and it was a big deal, did you notice, did people ever talk about that, or by the time you were around it, it was just that's what it was at that time?
Yeah, that's a good point about the NAA, because what were they repping, though? They were repping the Kings and the Raiders and all of that. They were repping, they messed up and blew up the NFL gear, which most people don't know. Wish they would have got a deal for that, because, you saw NAA, they mainly have, White Sox, the Kings. Ice Cube, this is where the White Sox at. But they had the Kings, the LA Kings, black and white, Kings hats on all the time.
Yeah, they made them change the colors.
Yeah. Oh, okay. That's why the Kings went from that color. Okay.
Yeah, they changed it because of gangster rap, man. That's really what happened.
I didn't know that. Okay, I didn't know that.
Yeah, because they used to be basically the Lakers colors.
They were, because they was at the Forum, and then they moved to the Staples Center. Yeah. Well, when Gretzky and them. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. So that could be the reason. And it probably was because you was trying to, appeal to both audience, the red and the blue. I don't know. I don't know the history of that, but other than, I know the Fuck the Police and stuff like that. That wasn't played in no nightclubs or no clubs where you were dancing. That was just mainly something you were riding around with your speakers in your car, bumping out as loud as you can. So, you wasn't really dancing to that.
So what was one other thing I meant to ask you in the flow of things that we got around, but what was the issue in your opinion of when the police officers were working for death row and other people that were, even if it was just smoking weed, which at the time was illegal, what was the issue that people had with law enforcement being affiliated with the artists?
They wasn't getting in trouble anymore. That's why my police department got contacted. They were like, man, these guys are not getting in trouble anymore. And every time they getting pulled over or something like that, you got guys with badges coming out talking to them. That was the three-letter boys, with the alphabets. That's what they were coming back saying. And then the police department was like, I don't know. Well, you got these cops wearing, they talking about they Compton cops. Why they? Oh, well, they work for a security company. No, they ain't working for a security company. They working for these rap stars, these death row guys and all of that. Oh, well, let us check into that. And then they start saying, hey, y'all working for... Well, we actually working for the security company, Right Way Protective Services now. Well, who's his clients? Well, his clients is Death Row Records. And then that's when, that started happening. And then incidents, in fairness, did happen where we were witnesses to and stuff like that. There was a beat down at the El Rey Theater, Soul Train After Awards Club, where a guy from the 60 Crips got beat down by some guys, and we were there and didn't report that we were there. And they was like, okay, why y'all didn't let us know y'all was there? Well, we letting y'all know now. We telling y'all now. And they was like, no, y'all should have stayed at the scene and reported it. Well, we had to get out of there. So stuff like that was starting to happen, unfortunately. I went to Miami, to a club in Miami where a girl got shot and killed when we did a party with Luke. When Death Row and Luke did a party together in the 95 Super Bowl, and had to report that happened. And so stuff like that was starting to happen. It was just a lot more things were starting to happen with this where it was a lot of, and so the police chief was like, no, y'all don't need to be working for them, and y'all need to get away. Stuff like that was happening, but that's why law enforcement had a problem with it. It was mainly because they were trying to get them in trouble, and they were not getting, they wasn't being as bad as they used to be.
And what changed in the environment to where that started happening?
If I'm understanding the question correctly,
well, I'm just saying if they were having whatever minor infractions or whatever was actually happening, and then, it's beat downs and actual real violence, real crimes that other law enforcement agencies were finding out about what changed in the environment to where it escalated to that point?
Yeah, they were always happening, the beatdowns and stuff, but now you got law enforcement as being witnesses, and they like, why are y'all around them? Why are you seeing this? Why couldn't you prevent this, or why you can't bring the guys in to testify or do this, or who did it? And where you pretty much didn't know, or you was just giving your verse, and they didn't like it because generally, no disrespect, you had younger black law enforcement officers that were probably 5 to 10 years in their career, and then you had these old-time white guys that were, been in law enforcement for 20, 25 years that just didn't like that. You just didn't hang around them. Those are bad guys. Why are you with those guys? They didn't understand that. You're fraternizing with the wrong. You're hanging out with the enemy, and you just don't know how many arguments and disagreements I have with older senior officers behind that, where I was like, no, these are guys I grew up with, so they ain't that bad, and you can't tell me, just like I don't tell you who you hang out with or be friends with when you off duty. You ain't gonna tell me who I can hang out with and be with. These are guys I played baseball with, high school football with. No,
right?
You're not gonna tell me. And so it's been a lot of that. So they didn't care for that at all. Which, after everything that went down that happened and the embarrassment of, the name of your department and all of that, I understand now where they were thinking. I don't agree with it, but I understand.
All right, so now you're working with Bomb First, but what else you got going on?
Oh, I still do some consulting with E1, E1 Entertainment. I still get that. I got a retirement, a medical retirement from the police department.
Okay.
From what was going on, and basically those are the things I'm doing. I'm not working with Bomb First. I just do that just to put it out, just to putting out information. To stop a lot of rumors where, my name has been associated to negatively,
right.
And then trying to dispel those rumors, that I had something to do with setting up Hawk because I wanted to take over Death Row, or that I had something, I orchestrated the hit on Biggie and all of that. And so just pretty much putting out the facts where it's just not old men, that learned who Tupac Shakur and Biggie Small was in 2004 and wanted to, decided to put out DVDs, for profit, to make some money off of it, to keep pushing the narrative
right.
that they know nothing about.
Well, that's why I wanted to have you on the Soren Baker show, man. When Steele brought up your name, I was like, man, that would be incredible. So Reggie Wright Jr. has been our guest tonight, and really appreciate you making yourself available and doing this interview with me, man. So thank you.
I appreciate you even allowing me to be on your platform, man.
Yeah, well, that's Reggie Wright Jr., man. I'm Soren Baker here on the Soren Baker Show. Thank you for listening. Be sure to download, share, and subscribe. You're listening to it on the podcast, and of course, you can also check it out on Unique Access Entertainment on YouTube. Thank y'all, and we'll see you next time. The Soren Baker Show.